part of its program with Broward County, Florida. Recognized for exceptional contributions, Scheril has been named one of the top 12 cannabis attorneys in Florida by the Daily Business Review and honored in the High Times 100 and the top 28 most influential African Americans in the history of the United States with regards to drug and cannabis policy by Honeysuckle Magazine. She is a Florida licensed hemp farmer and a research farmer for the University of Florida. She was recently awarded the Going Above and Beyond by the Diasporic African Rastafari Council in November 2025. Committed to advocacy and community service, Scheril serves on various boards and is the president of consulting firm Green Sustainable Strong LLC. Her dedication extends to volunteering with the Winrock Foundation, delivering marketing training to farmers in Ghana and Africa. Cheril's dynamic career trajectory, spanning legal practice, education, advocacy, and community service, reflects an unwavering commitment to excellence and social justice. And we are so glad, as the Rastafari Reasoning, to host her tonight to do a presentation with Ras Anan Xola Lololi. Yes.
Give thanks, Ross Kofi, and we'll introduce Xola shortly because his bio is very dynamic, and he's been in service to his community for some time. But I'll just share that, as mentioned, I'm a cannabis agricultural dietary supplement trade, psychedelics, and regulatory attorney. I've recently added immigration law because of the need here to my areas of practice. I am Rastafari. I'm a Rasta woman. I'm a Ganja woman. And I've always been very true to that path. With this topic that we have here today, I first, before I get too far deep into it, I want to recognize your leader, President Russ Abdadi who has been very instrumental in the global presence of Rastafari and the organization and centralization of Rastafari, and to all of the executive team who support him in these works. To Brother Kofi, thank you for seeing my work and recognizing that I have something to contribute here and treating me like family. To Russ Jasson, thank you so much for just the support and the edification when we were together in Ghana, in Liatewote, in the Volta region. So grateful for your friendship. With that said, I am the international president of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, which was founded in 1937 in New York, New York, by His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. He founded this for the Black people of the world. He said, we need to unify. There are like three organizations he founded. The OAU, because he wanted to, ensure that Africans on the continent came together. And then the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated was to make sure that we have that connection and that citizenship with the African continent, and that we know we don't have to suffer the abuses, and that there's opportunity to trade with Africa, that there's opportunity for us to be brothers and sisters all together. So it's with honor and it's a privilege for me to lead this organization, this federation, this government that has been in existence since 1937. Those who have come before me, I have tremendous respect for. Today, I mentioned that I will be, departing at a certain time because I'm actually here at the funeral for one of our former international presidents, the Honorable Ronald Honeycutt. So part of my duties is to ensure that we send him home the right way, the Rastafari way, and with love from the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. As an agriculturalist, we have to pay attention to what's going on now with regards to our food, access to food, control of food, and perversion of food. Even it used to be very clear what is food and what is not. In modern times, there need to be definitions on what constitutes a food. You will see elements of chemicals, plastics, all types of contaminants being used to make people feel full, make people feel satisfied, but they're not getting the nutritional value. So those are some of the reasons why we need to have Black food sovereignty. Now, there's a distinction and difference between food security and food sovereignty. And for a long time, they've kept us focused on food security, getting food by any means necessary. But the quality of the food is just as important. And you're seeing in mainstream community, maybe white community, that they're, really clinging to this organic standard because they know that this food that's being given at low cost and for free has these contaminants of chemicals and things in them. So they're taking this banner of organic. As Rastafari, we also have always known that there's a distinction between good, wholesome food. Regardless of the mansion that you're a part of, we recognize, we appreciate, and we lean towards good, wholesome food. The growth of disease in modern times is astronomical. It's exponential. And it's due to food inputs. Those who are meat eaters, and I know some Rastafari meats, you have to keep in mind that based on the sourcing of your food, there may be a cow with cancer that they just cut around the cancer, or the same with chickens, the same with other livestock, because they don't have the values we have. They don't have the um, they don't have the concern for health and wellness. There's some Rastafari that cling to a veganic, standard, which I appreciate a veganic standpoint because it's saying not only are you organic, where you're using all natural things, but you're looking for vegan substitutes for your like when you're creating your soil or building your soil. I always like to say that, instead of manure, we can use coffee grinds when we're trying to raise the temperature for composting. There's been some experimentation at universities. I advocate for it. Coffee grinds are a waste product. Coffee grinds, you can go to coffee houses all around this country and say, can you not throw out your coffee grinds? And then you collect it, and it can become a product that is sold as we advance this veganic or ITAL standard. So there's a very clear difference between food security and food sovereignty. Food security allows you to just take whatever so that you're fed. But food sovereignty means that we hold a higher standard and we want the best. We want the best nutritional value that is sustainable, that economically can sustain our community, as well as eliminating the risk of disease due to food consumption. And that's the direction that we're going in. And that's the direction that's being led by Rastafari and other Pan-African organizations in our community. In Ghana, I did a talk. It was called From Survival to Sustainability to Sovereignty. And I was speaking in the context of coalition of Pan-African organizations and how we work together. That a lot of times we start working together, we're in survival mode, and then we go to, once we find that equilibrium, we go to sustainability, but we rarely go to that sovereignty piece. His Imperial Majesty, in his utterances, he talks about the fact that Ethiopia was able to survive because they were in isolation, very similar to Rastafari. All of these decades we've been surviving because we've been isolating ourselves, we've been underground. But now is the time for us to really rise to above ground, rise to leadership, reform these policies that are harmful to ourselves and the Black people of the world, including food policy. It is uncomfortable for us. It may make us feel as if we're targets, and that's what we were avoiding during our survival phase. But it is especially necessary if we ever want to get to the sovereignty phase of the life cycle of our complete independence. So when we get to the point that we are growing our own food, but not only doing it ourselves individually, but creating an actual supply chain of healthy, nutritious, self-sourced food, that is when we're going to get to sustainability. When we create the educational platforms to teach individual families how to feed themselves, teach geographies how to feed themselves, and have a farm to plate strategy within their community, and then beyond that, exporting what we know in our products and services to the world for them to be healthier. That's when we get to sustainability. But when we get to the point where we can be resistant to any international, national, community, epidemic, pandemic, risk to food sourcing, having the choice to choose healthy versus not, that is when we get to the sovereignty level. And that's what we're driving towards. For our next generation, we have to lead by example. Lead by example, very few, and eventually a zero tolerance to exceptions as far as how we source our food. For our children, we need to incorporate food governance and healthy foods and production of foods into our entire educational system from K to 12, from cradle to grave. It's very important. It has to be a way of life, part of our living. And then finally, we need to send them to the best agricultural universities and have MOUs with these universities, teach them how to apply for grants, even as children, for their innovative ideas. We need to invite our engineers into the agricultural space. We need to invite our lawyers and accountants and our economists into our agricultural space so that we have the latest innovations. And that's the only way we can go from sustainability to sovereignty. So it's a whole shuffling of our approach to how we educate Rastafari children, Rastafari attending traditional higher education learning facilities. It's a mindset shift. And then we have to have a zero tolerance and a constantly evolving approach to this because it's coming. We know what's coming. We know what we're guarding against. And that's why sovereignty, as soon as possible, is so very important. So that's the direction we're going in. I'll just talk briefly about our ITAL standard. Xola mentioned earlier that we were together and I mentioned as well when I spoke about Ras Chasan, we were in Liatewote at CASI, the Kwefuendo Sustainability Institute. And we were there for 10 days. But part of it was the ITIL standard certification, which is invitation only. And then we went into the global Black food sovereignty portion, which was also invitation only. So powerful to see all these Pan-African organizations coming together, having healthy discussions and healthy disagreements so that we can achieve this goal of sovereignty at the end of the day. I will tell you part of the ITIL certification pathway that is being developed by RMO is about food sovereignty and what our ITIL version of global food sovereignty. Right now, we're focused on cannabis as a first phase. The second phase is going to be all about food. Okay. And that's why we need to prepare. There's no reason why you can't skip ahead and start developing curriculum within the Rastafari Council of Ghana around how we approach agriculture in a way that's consistent with our liberty, consistent with our values, consistent with His Imperial Majesty's plan, and to insulate us against any type of disaster or catastrophe. It has to start now. Don't wait for us to develop the standards. They are coming, but we have to start taking action now because we know what's around the corner. We just don't know how soon it's going to hit us and to what magnitude. We have the thought leaders within Rastafari to make this a global movement. And we have the right leadership, including Xola, to do things in the right way and learn from each other's best practices as well. Now, leaders of organizations like myself, Russ Daddy Bosco, Xola, other leaders who may be present on this call, we need to engage with the United Nations. I'm with the United Nations for Women and Girls in Science event this week. And then the EWF also has an after event, a side event to the UN event called Women and Girls in Science, Indigenous plant science, plant medicine is science. So we're having a side event where I'm going to give flyers to our community that I see so they can come and learn from the EWF about what this means and this scientific direction for the next generation of girls means with regards to our sovereignty and our food sovereignty. So we're attending their events, but we're doing an expansion series. And you're going to see that more and more often as the UN takes direction. I said we have to engage with the AU in the same way with regards to global Black food sovereignty. And then the EWF, wherever we have locals, and I'm hoping as a partner, the Rastafari Council of Ghana, wherever, or the Rastafari councils, because I know you guys have been diligent in setting up councils in Sierra Leone and other places, that we become the hub. We become the hub for excellence in food production and creating a supply chain. We're going to organize the rest of the Pan-African organizations around this concept, but we will be leading from the front. And that's the long-term strategy and the long-term trend. So for these few words, I give thanks. I'm going to hand off to our host, Ross Kofi, so that he can read the tremendous bio of Xola, and then we can hear from the man himself who has led this charge internationally, starting in Toronto, Xola. Give thanks. Blessed love.
Blessed love, Empress Scheril, and we give thanks for that information and updates. Yes, Brother Anan Xola Lololi is the Executive Director of the Black Sovereignty Alliance. He's a Food Policy Fellow in the School of Public Policy and Democratic Innovation at the Faculty of Arts at Toronto Metropolitan University. He's one of the founders and former Executive Director of African Food Baskets, a position he held for 26 years, during which he promoted Black food sovereignty and food justice in Toronto, North America, and the Caribbean. Anan holds a master's degree in environmental studies from York University, a diploma in business administration from Centennial College, and an honorary Bachelor of Commerce culinary management from George Brown College Center for Hospitality and Culinary Arts. Anan is also a research associate at the TMU Center for Studies in Food Security, a senior advisor for the Atlanta Black Food Sovereignty Collective, and a co-chair of the Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective. He was a member of the City of Toronto Food Policy Council, a board member of the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario, and a former food policy consultant of the Detroit Black Food Sovereignty Network. So, Xola, please. Oh, yes.
Give thanks. Give thanks, my brother, and give thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak and contribute to this educational committee of the Ghana Rastafari Council. It's an honor. As was said before, I was just in Ghana. A life-altering experience for me to come to Guyana. Right now, I'm presently where I was born in Guyana, and that's on the northern coast of South America, and about 2 hours up the Demerara River in the Wisma community, visiting the Ivine Order, the Theocratic Order of the Ivine Order of the Nyabingi. We having house reasoning today and celebrating Black History Month. I give thanks that I could speak about my journey. My journey is started in, I would say, 1995 in Toronto, where we established the African Food Basket. And for me, this whole journey in the last 30 years, I've been working in sustainable food systems in Canada. But I like to say specifically Black sustainable food systems in Canada, because my work is specifically focused within the African Canadian community intentionally. With the African Food Basket, we started out as a food buying club, making sure members of the African Canadian community, especially single mothers, seniors, intentionally looking at people within the low income bracket in our community. Now, we as people of African descent in Canada, we have the highest rate of poverty, and we live in the lowest income communities. Now, the contradiction is that where food is concerned, we purchase the most expensive foods, because our foods travel, whether from the Caribbean, Central and South America, or Africa, is the most expensive food. I don't know if you're familiar, but Jamaica, I would say, probably have the best sweet potatoes in the world, and it's the most expensive sweet potato. And it's the most expensive because it's the best. So to maintain our cultural, culinary way of life, eating foods that we're accustomed to, it costs a lot and take a lot out of this meager income if you live in low-income communities. So we started this food buying club so that we could make sure members of our community have access to food at a more affordable price. So I would say it's what we call a nonprofit food cooperative, not registered officially as a cooperative, but as a nonprofit. And we really encourage folks to volunteer. We pack the food at a warehouse and distribute in our communities. We have things like edo, yam, callaloo, sweet potato, avocado, carrots, okra, and more food that people from the Caribbean Black community consume. And it's very similar to what people consume within Africa. Now, at the time when we started, a lot of the food was directed specifically within the African Canadian community and the Caribbean community. In the next 2 or 3 years after we started, I would say around 95, 96, 97, we started looking at urban agriculture, because what we realized, because the food was so expensive, it would make sense to see how we could plant our foods. And the foods, when people talk about Canada, they think, well, it's pure ice and snow. It's not so. From mid-May until first week in October, we have the opportunity to grow food of the tropical variety. So we started doing what we call community gardens, backyard gardens, school gardens. And with the African Food Basket, we build a repetition for making sure within our communities we establish these programs. From that, we evolve into looking at the possibility of urban farming. And we were able to establish 2 urban farms, one in Toronto and one in an adjoining city called Brampton. Now, these few words that I have spoken so far in relation to the works of the African food basket, what we realize is that we were involved in food sovereignty. Now, what is food sovereignty? Well, the idea is that food sovereignty looks at how communities is a truly democratic, just and sustainable way when you're looking at control over your own food and agriculture. It is a doctrine that the International Small Farmers and Peasants Movement, La Via Campesina, introduced to the world in 1993. It got going firmly in 1995, and this was through indigenous communities using the phrase in 1993, food sovereignty, food sovereignty. I would like to say up front, Via Campesina reintroduced to the world food sovereignty as a concept because within the African continent, and I like to say in my own brand and how I see the beginning of food sovereignty, because food sovereignty really began in Africa. And the foundation was laid by our most ancient ancestor, the African woman feeding the first African child. To me, that is the beginning of Black food sovereignty, of African food sovereignty, because that's where it begins. But going through the ages, we had empires in Africa, Egypt, Kush, Ghana, Benin, you name it. Many great empires in Africa, we were food sovereign. We were always food sovereign. So the idea of Black food sovereignty and African food sovereignty is really nothing new. It's just we looking through the lens of Sankofa, we looking back and recapturing that sovereignty when we look at food as people of African descent. So with Via Campesina now, we have to give thanks for them to reintroducing this idea. And I can speak, I know Sister Scheril speak about the difference between food security and food sovereignty. But as with food sovereignty, it addresses many facts that is pertinent to we as people of African descent. When we talk about health justice, it recognizes that there are numerous socio-economic factors, social determinants of health that affect an individual and a community health status. The idea of social determinant of health is based on substantial research that the social and physical environment greatly influences a person's health. Now, food sovereignty rather than food security. When we look at the Food and Agriculture Organization from the United Nations, they define the objectives of achieving food security as a situation that exists when all peoples at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy lifestyle. All these objectives sound good that being misused to justify policies that only prioritize yield and delivery of food to consumer by any means. Food security has become divorced from considerations of how food is produced and by whom. Food justice and food sovereignty have this. Food security is misused to encourage the industrialization and corporatization for agriculture, food aid, and the use of genetically modified seeds, the shifting of food production from diverse crops for local markets to monocultures for export, and the liberalization market, where small producers are put out of business by subsidized imports. Food security really is not the way that we need to look at food. As I said, we need to look forward to our ancestors. Food was always local. And it is clear that the doctrine of food security on its own has failed to meet the needs of the people for a source of nutrition. And this type of system or concept in food security of providing food is also destroying our environment. Real food security must be based on food sovereignty, the people's truly democratic, just, and sustainable supreme control over the food and agriculture. The model of food sovereignty, not food security, is what is needed. One that works with farmers and consumers, communities, soil, and biodiversity, one in which actual food production depends. If we don't have good soil and good biodiversity, we won't have good food production. So we see food security as using these industrial methods, and they contaminating the land, and they contaminating the rivers and the waters around the land. And also it bringing sickness to people because you're consuming foods that have been chemically produced and chemically processed. So when we organizing for food justice, we want to make sure we look at ways that we could define our food security, our food sovereignty. So we ask the question, what is Black food sovereignty? As I explained before, food sovereignty is the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agricultural systems. So when we started farming in Ontario, we went right to farming ecologically. We want to make sure we use sustainable methods in farming. And we decide to grow the foods that are culturally specific to our communities. And we promote an agricultural system that look at the tradition of people of African descent. What foods we traditionally eat in Africa, what foods we were eating from the Caribbean and Latin America and South America as communities of African descent. So when we started looking at growing the food, we grow the foods that are ecologically safe, and we grow the foods that are culturally related to people of African descent, communities of color from the Caribbean, the Black communities. Black communities, whether you're from Somalia, whether you're from Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, we make sure that we look at the roots of how these people look at food culture with our limited access and our focus as people of African descent. So when we having these farm programs, we have farm programs that we call learning farms, where we started because the whole experience of the food culture within Canada, we realized that there was systemic racism and anti-Black racism within the food system historically. And even to this day, we're still seeing systemic anti-Black racism within the food system. By the African Food Basket and now the Black Food Sovereignty Alliance advocating, we see the importance of highlighting Black food sovereignty. So it's introducing these concepts so that our community could understand when we say Black food sovereignty, what we're speaking of. We want to make sure funders and foundations who supporting the work we're doing, whether it be the government or whether it be just philanthropic foundation, they understand what is Black food sovereignty. Of recent, the Black Food Sovereignty Alliance has been engaging governments, municipal government and the federal government to what is Black food sovereignty. And similar to the explanation from Via Campesina, the foundation of the new movement of food sovereignty, we see a simple change in how we define Black food sovereignty from food sovereignty. And basically, we say Black food sovereignty is the right of people of African descent to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agricultural system. Now, within this sentence, for us, the most important word is defining our own food and agricultural system. That is our sovereignty, to define as people of African descent how we want to look at food and agriculture systems. We want to make sure we look at the yam culture in Africa. We want to make sure we look east, west, north, and south in Africa to the food culture and the food ways, so we could reclaim these ways of looking at food and looking at the dietary, whether it be food we eat, whether it be the herbs, whether it be the grains. We look at all aspects, because I always like to use this quote from Chancellor Williams when he speaks about people of African descent and the way we live. And not only the way we live, but the way we do things. And this quote, I think, also speaks specifically to agriculture, because he said cooperatives is a natural way of life in Africa. It's common sense for people in Africa. We do things together. And when we do things separate, that is how we are caught up in food security. That's how we caught up in the whole industrialized agriculture. But when we look at cooperatives now, how we produce the food, how we distribute the food, I think is fundamental. So for me, I see two foundational development within Black food sovereignty. First, Black food sovereignty foundation is a Pan-African foundation. It's looking at the foundation of what is Pan-Africanism and how we move forward collectively as people of African descent. The other aspect is looking at a sustainable food system. And a sustainable food system is very important when we look at development of Black food sovereignty globally. Because what is sustainable? A sustainable food system. And the concept and the framework. Well, when we talk about a food system, it encompasses the entire range of actors and the interlinked value-adding activities involved in the production, aggregation, processing, distribution, consumption, and the disposal of food products that originate from agriculture, forestry, or fisheries, and parts of a broader economic, societal, and natural environment in which we are embedded. Are we talking about communities that we live in, whether on the continent or whether in the Black diaspora, in any country we live, whether in Brazil, or have the largest Black population out of Africa, or whether we in Guyana, Jamaica, USA, Canada, wherever we live as people of African descent. We want to make sure we look at what is the sustainable food system in relation to our community. So the food system is composed of subsystems, farming systems, waste management systems, input supply systems, etc. And they interact with each other in key systems, whether energy system, trade system, health system. So let me talk about a sustainable food system now. It's a food system that delivers food security, food sovereignty, and nutrition for all in such a way that the economic, social, and environmental basis generate food sovereignty and nutrition for future generations and are not compromised. That means it is profitable through economic sustainability. Because we grown it organic, that doesn't mean it's not economically sustainable, because the organic market in, I would say, North America and Europe is in the billions of dollars. So growing food organic and safe food is possible. It has a broad-based benefits for social sustainability. I mean, it could keep communities safe and sustainable. A good example, we don't have to pollute the environment of which we live in to grow food. We want to grow it ecologically safe in a way so that it could be sustained for generations. It has a positive and a neutral impact on the natural environment, that we don't mess up the water and the soil. Why we're taking a sustainable approach. Africa, the largest and fastest population growth. A sustainable food system must be considered in the context of the rapid population growth, urbanization, growing wealth, changing consumption patterns, and globalization, as well as climate change, and the depletion of natural resources. I say this because Black food sovereignty, we have to look more to the holistic side of food production. And as a globally connected body, as the Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective, we have to make sure that we speak to issues that is very important to educating our communities of what is our strategic focus. So I would now switch to the Black Food Sovereignty Collective, the Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective, that we're able to come together, as Sister Scheril said, at Leyawati in Volta region in Ghana from October the 13th to the 17th. We were able to discuss strategies for global Black food sovereignty and look at how the strong leadership of this conference developed, and as a joint force of leadership, and looking at how we could start meeting and conferencing, so that as a people, we started seeing how we could work globally together, whether it be trade, whether it be education, whether it be sharing knowledge. We want to make sure we start building a link, because, unity is strength. So at the Kweku, with the bringing together by Habisha Inc. at the Kweku Ando Sustainability Institute in Leyawati, we were able to fellowship and look at ways that at Kasi, we were able to look at Pan-African healing and look at how we could strategize how we're moving forward. And this is the inaugural gathering that happened. So in a few weeks, they're gonna be letting out our Pan-African Declaration on Black Food Sovereignty. We want to make sure that we speak to this issue and encourage more participation as a Black Food Sovereignty Collective. Because if it's one thing I learned in my 30 years in Toronto and organizing around, we used to call it community food security. But I would like to say we were involved in Black food sovereignty from the inception. It's to look at how we come together and learn from each other. Because in the wider Canadian scope of things, I learned so much from conferencing. Every year, there's an organic conference, like ecological farmers conference, there's a community food security conference, there's a food security Canada conference. All these conferences, learning opportunities. And for me, I took great pain to make sure that I engage in these gatherings so I could learn about the development of a sustainable food system and how to contribute to our Black sustainable food system. So the Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective, we come together as an Alliance of African Descent constituent organization representing Black sustainable food systems. And I use the word Black intentionally in sustainable food system. When we talk about food sovereignty, the mean is a sustainable food system, defined by people of African descent at home or abroad. So this collective of Black sustainable food systems representatives from East Africa, West Africa, the Caribbean, North and South America. The Black sustainable food system thinking is an approach that integrates the general principles of sustainable food systems with the specific historical context and needs of Black communities, emphasizing food sovereignty, social justice, equity, African foodways, and community self-determination. It moves beyond food security, mere access to food, to Black food sovereignty, control over one's own food system. And at this pioneering gathering, attendees had decades of experience in Black food justice, Black food sovereignty practice, preserving culture and traditional methods, and unapologetic advocacy for a Black-led, Black-focused, and Black-sovereign sustainable food system development. At this meetup, we were able to galvanize our collective human, intellectual, property, and material resources to discuss strategies for global Black food sovereignty. For the Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective Gathering was a powerful moment of unity and purpose, bringing together elders, youth, and community leaders to share wisdom and strategies for collective growth. It was honored to be guided by the warrior, healer, builder teachings from the Higher Educational Institute. We participated in many sessions, strengthening our skills and learning together how we could strategize for a better future for us as people of African descent. So we're looking forward in the coming weeks to distribute a Pan-African Declaration for Global Black Food Sovereignty. And this will be issued to affirm our relationship with the land. It's sacred, and we are committing to treating that relationship with intention and care. So as a Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective, we gather to create our vision and our future and self-determination. We are looking forward to our second annual Black Food Sovereignty in Bongi in October in 2026 at the Kweku Ando Sustainability Institute in Liawati in the Volta region in Ghana. And I am honored to be asked to be nominated along with my sister, Omisigun Tiffany Pennock, CEO and President at Iowa Lifestyle, as one of the two co-chairs to lead the Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective for 2026. So I am open to any questions in relation to how we evolve the highlights of our work. I would like to give a shout out to Habisha Inc. and Bingi Shan for his work and his family in hosting us at the Liawati Volta region in Ghana, at the Kasi Institute. The accommodation, the ITAL, everything was out of sight. I would say it's on another level in relation to the ITAL Liberty. I'd also like to put out honors to the Black Food and Justice Alliance for their work. Also to the Black Sustainably Inc., who also had their conference, their 10th annual conference, just after the Black Food Sovereignty in Bongi. I'd like to make sure I shout out also to the Atlanta Black Food Sovereignty Collective for their work in helping to organize the first inaugural Global Black Food Sovereignty in Bongi. And I also like to shout out to all my brethren from in Ghana, Ras Aswat, Ras Bobo, Jason, I give thanks for the opportunity to come home, to my original home and really share these words of Black food sovereignty as I'm sharing now. And I give thanks. I'm looking forward for any questions from my brethren and sisters on this educational community, Rastafari.
And Brother Kofi, I'm available for questions as well for a time until I have to go to the funeral, but give thanks.
Rastafari, we appreciate the presentation. Empress, Scheril, and Ras Lololi.
Xola. Razola.
Yes, Razola. We appreciate the education. At this stage, you open the platform for comments, questions. Ones who have comments, or questions for more clarification can do so now. But Empress, you on the Black Food Sovereignty, you said you are starting with cannabis. In brief, how much work have you done so far on cannabis? And as you address this thing, I want you to touch on the fact that the issue of cannabis, is this still a relevant call for the Rastaman to pursue? There are some Rastas who think that we've been about this thing our whole lives and it's about time we change gears. And there are those who think that no, until victory, we can't turn our back. So is this still a relevant struggle for the Rastaman to champion? And what is the global black food sovereignty position on cannabis currently? I give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks. That's a really good question. I would answer it. My quick answer is yes, it's still necessary. We are not where we need to be on cannabis legalization. We're not where we need to be as far as owning our black supply chains with regards to cannabis. So we have to unite. We cannot just rest on our laurels because we've had a few small victories along the way. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to truly free the plant and be able to create the international supply chain, but the ITAL international supply chain that we need to without being concerned about harm to our brethren. So, I like to approach things from a harm reduction standpoint first, avoiding the incarcerations, the beatings, the cutting of the hair. That's my first priority with regards to cannabis policy. And then beyond that, it's the economic growth and opportunity that's created and the job creation, the pinnacle replication, and then we move into the community reinvestment of the cannabis dollars to build infrastructure. So that's kind of always been my approach through my three pillars of excellence, which are social justice, that's letting people out of prisons, expunging records, giving them technical training when they are released, when they're returning citizens. And then the second part is socially equitable access to the cannabis industry, putting those who suffered the harm first, and making sure that we have parity with regards to our involvement. And then the third part is social responsibility and community reinvestment, especially to those harmed communities or over policed communities. I want to highlight the work of RMO. I wore today, I have two pins on today that I'm wearing on my outfit, but this one, I have my RMO pin, because I guess I have blurred the screen, but my RMO pin is usually on my denim jacket, but I took it off today to wear it today because I knew I'd be amongst ones and ones for the EWF and Rastafari community, because RMO's doing a great work by unifying the Rastafari Mansion, starting in Jamaica, and then the collaborative relationships internationally, including, the Rastafari Council of Ghana, Rastafari Council of Sierra Leone, and building those relationships. We have with us RMO's council, Ross Kwasi Bonsu, Dejesmax Kwasi, and he's done a lot of the work around, leading us through a very organized way with the minimal amount of conflict of developing both the ITIL standard for our ganja and then the ITIL standard for food. So if it's permissible to the chair, I'd like to give Dejesmax Kwasi an opportunity to address the delegation to talk about where we are on that project work and what the vision is for the future, and include what the rollout plan will be, including getting consensus across Rastafari around the world. So if it's permissible to the chair, I'd like to give Dejesmax Kwasi an opportunity to respond to that question as well. Does it please the chair if I give some of my time to Dejesmax Kwasi for the response?
Yes, Empress, please.
Okay, Dejesmax Kwasi, are you able to respond to that question about the ITIL certification project as well as the Global Black Food Sovereignty Rastafari ITIL Global Black Food Sovereignty Strategy.
Can you hear me? Greeting.
I don't think. Okay,
Can
yeah.
you
Okay, go
can
ahead.
you hear me all right? First and
Yes.
foremost, just greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First. Greetings and honor in the name of His chosen Queen Empress was Zero Menin. It's a great honor to be here. I'm glad I caught the link. Give thanks to our International EWF President, Sister Scheril, for sending out the link um, that I and I could be on this call. Massive respect to the work that's happening with the RCC, the Rastafari Continental Council, as well as the Rastafari Council of Ghana, and the work that they have been doing as well. We've been longtime supporters of those initiatives. In terms of the ITAL certification standard, that is coming through the RMO. And the reason we chose the RMO is because it's an acknowledgement that the intellectual property that underpins the term ITAL, IRI, INI, all of these things arose from Rastafari in Jamaica. So we wanted to ensure, although it's a global asset that all of INI's Rastafari benefit from and look forward to harness, that the root is rooted with the originators of these terms, which would be the Rastafari community in Jamaica, as represented by its umbrella organization, the RMO. So the RMO, as part of its business development committee, has created a subcommittee, which they asked I to chair, along with Sister Aisha, who is based out of the U.S. Virgin Islands. This subcommittee has been meeting now, I think over a year now, in terms of developing the standard for the certification of ITIL certification that would be similar to the kosher or halal standards used by the Jewish and Muslim communities, respectively. And we have embarked on that mission. One of the things that we decided from very early was that this effort could not be just siloed in the RMO, because these terms have become global terms associated with the movement, and the implementation or the rollout would also need a global rollout. So we overstood from early that we wanted to invite participation from Rastafari agronomists, farmers from around the world. So we did do that. And the committee now is comprised of various specialists from around the world, including our esteemed elder Xola, who has coined the term Rastafari food sovereignty and Black food sovereignty, and our esteemed international president, Sister Scheril Murray Powell, Esquire. But we also, Dr. Michelle Emmanuel, the foremost cannabis researcher at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Kadamawi Knife, Bongo Wisely, retired agronomist, Bongo Huge, who is also the agricultural chair for this Caribbean Rastafari organization, Ross Bobby, the master herbalist, um, Honorable Bobo Selassie, also a permaculture specialist there in Ghana, and Ras Jasson have also been added to that committee. And we have created an initial technical standard document for cannabis. And the reason we said cannabis first or ganja first is because recognizing the economic opportunities in legal markets that are present, via things like licensing agreements and the sort, having Rastafari branded strains of ganja. But before any licensing or anything could be done, we'd have to ensure the integrity of the product, which would mean the creation of a standard. So we are looking at ganja being able to lead out to be able to help to finance the wider program, which would extend to produce, but not just produce, construction materials, textiles. We're looking at ITAL from a holistic perspective and how we can eventually develop a standard that encompasses all aspects of the livity and carve out that competitive advantage within the marketplace that Rastafari around the world could enjoy. And that can usher us into an industrial phase of the movement. So that work is happening. We took a pause, interrupted somewhat because of the disaster of Hurricane Melissa, which unleashed unprecedented disaster in Jamaica, devastating, half of the island. And so, we haven't met really since Ghana, and it was coming forward from Ghana that the hurricane hit Jamaica, and we've been in recovery mode, relief, rebuild, and recovery mode. And, we recently had a webathon, which the RCC endorsed through Daddy Bosco, and we give thanks for Daddy Bosco's support on that. And what we are now looking at is, how can we create this economic foundation for the global family? So whether it's peppers, whether it's ganja, the products that we use, how can we introduce not only ITAL produce, but value-added products that are branded with the ITAL signature. We also recently established a media collaboration with 12 different Rastafari media platforms, including my platform, the Lions Voice Network, which I hope all of the items are subscribed to and can find on YouTube. But this media collaboration represents over 2 million potential subscribers. And these are all Rastafari and Pan-African platforms. So this collaboration would also be integral in terms of rolling out the ITAL standard and sensitizing, educating the public about what is ITAL, why is it different than vegan, why is it important for us to have a standard, and why is it the best choice for the consumer? So I hope that answers the question, and I give thanks for the opportunity to Block and for future collaboration. Give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks, Judges Masquasi. Sorry, Chair. I'll let you speak because I know you may have something to say. At some point, I'd love to ask our beloved Gobo Selassie to share some of the collaboration that's been going on with Mama Ima, who is visiting. She's like my queen mother. She's a former international president. She is first Rastafari woman to come to Ghana in 1975. But they've been doing a great work across generations to ensure that we're creating a direct pipeline between produce and herbs in Ghana and the diaspora, starting with like New York, Florida, places like that. So whenever it pleases the chair, if you can give Ross Boba Selassie an opportunity to talk about how we can immediately start our own pipeline as well as supply chain. But I yield to the chair.
Yes,
I like to also let the chair.
Empress.
I like to also let the chair know that there's a Zoom user who has put his hand up for a
Yes.
very long time, and it's good if we could have questions and answers along with bringing forth my good brethren, Ras Bobo. Much respect and everything, Rastafari.
Give thanks, Razola. So that's President Cake's hand up. So per your suggestion, President Cakes, please go ahead with your contribution, and then Bobo Selassie can come in with what Empress has invited him to share. President Kirk.
Greetings, one and all. My name is President Kex, and I give thanks for all the work that is going on. I've been part of the food sovereignty Ghana for a long time, but I don't talk plenty on the platform because I have a different issue concerning the food. I will boldly say that I subscribe to Dr. Sebi's teachings because to me he's the only one who can cure or who has been able to cure almost all the diseases in the world. So anybody who knows about Dr. Sebi, I am a big student of him. And now I just want to remind all of us that while we are fighting for food sovereignty, we should fight for gene food consistency. That means as your gene and the food that is consistent with your gene, and which is African biomineral balance. The foods we are talking about all are so far what we've been discussing is agricultural foods. But we have to start thinking about the food that we've been taking before agriculture. You know, that is the gene food consistency. As a black man, there are certain foods you should eat and some food you shouldn't eat. So I'll just advise all of us to take notice of being as black people, we need to avoid blood and starch, mainly in our food. Unfortunately, rice has a lot of starch and cyanide, cassava, same, and yam and all these things. So if you want to live healthy and a long life, you should abstain from most of this food. We should eat seeds, grains, and nuts. And most Rastaman I know, we don't eat meat and fish. But unfortunately, we eat a lot of starch. And we should make the research. Everybody should at least listen to Dr. Sebi's teachings and then get yourself familiar with the type of foods we should be eating. That is what I want to shortly remind everybody of. Thank you very much.
Yes, give thanks, right? So, Bobo, Empress was requesting you to make a statement. Can you go ahead?
Yes, I give thanks. Yeah, greetings, Empress and kings and queens, and we give thanks for the gathering. It's a big platform. Yeah, since Cassie in October 2005, we decide to at least trade among ourselves as Black people. So when Empress Ima was in Ghana for I think on the December 19th or something for the Diaspora Summit, she said she's been in Ghana for about 70s and then she's been dealing with some herbs and she showed me a lot of companies that she's been dealing with. And so she decided, see whether I can be able to help with the collaborating with her to get the things done. So since she's been in Ghana, she said this is the first time that she's been in Ghana to have a help because she alone have to go around all the place to get all the herbs and some are difficult, some are different places of the region of Ghana. So we begin to collaborate in a way that culture getting some from different sources that she has been working with already. But instead of she going around difficult sometimes, it's good that we, the young people, can have some of this knowledge because she's like diverse in many different things. And she tell me whatever she's been doing with the different herb, different product, anything that she called for me to look for her, she will tell me how this thing is used, why she need all those things. So the experience I'm having with her is the best of a kind. And since Cassie to some bridges I'll be contacting from the like Americas and other places for like something like Moringa products. That's why most of the time I'm proposing a capacity building that can transform most of us into a more formidable way because
Your line is
Yeah, Bobo. Yeah, Bobo, you are not coming through. So if you can reposition yourself. Yeah, I'm sure his network is quite bad. So he has left and he will try and rejoin. So if anybody has a question or contribution, please, you
Let
can
me
come.
continue from Japan.
All right.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So what I'm since the global food sovereignty, and as Xola was explaining, we all exposed to, like when I was with other organizations, we talk about food sovereignty, but not in the way that he's explaining. We're talking about black food sovereignty now, which is talking about like what President Kek is saying. What do we need to consume as black people when there is a global disaster? We will not be the first people should be taken care of. So going forward, we as the organization that are ready to support the food sovereignty globally must be able to. It's like a value chain. So we need to position and test ourselves and see which role can we play in the continuance of the supply of the value chain. As our president Empress was saying, we need to involve the accountants. We need to involve different grounds of people within the agriculture sector so that everybody, accountant can deal with the banking sector, monetary, all those things, and somebody also can teach in various parts. So it's a value chain that before we can be sustainably or food sovereignty globally, it needs a lot of work. And we as Rastafari Council also have to see how and where we can play locally, because through the meeting we decide from the CASI that there will be 3 countries that will be starting as a pilot project or like a startup, like to see how it goes, like a prototype. So they mentioned South Africa, Ghana, and Ethiopia, where we're supposed to be exchanging products and promoting locally within African continent before thinking about outside the continent. How can we get to our brothers and sisters? So, like us, it is as Rasola was relating to going like sharing food mostly from continent to continent, like country to country, might be a bit expensive. So when we can even do like knowledge exchange program and knowledge sharing in agriculture, we can have a team of people who can travel around the continent, set of places that people can grow what is capable of growing. Then we can do the rest of shipment and transportation of like various products that can, like from medicinal product to food consuming to every kind of need we have as African people to complete that food sustainability or that food sovereignty cycle, so that we, the people of African descent, will be able to decide how we control our food from now in the future. That even in terms of any problem, we know that we already have a system that is rolling for us. So since Empress Aima, she's been here, she said this is the first time she's been in Ghana being assisted by somebody. So we are expecting that not only the food we eat, by medicinal plants and many different things that are needed on the continent. I'm very surprised meeting her the amount of things that she need, which are sometimes we don't regard them in our common day life, like neem powder, moringa, certain things that we see as valueless within Africa is very important elsewhere. And even like neem oil, some things are capably solving a huge problem in other parts of the world. So we have to restructure and know the value of what we have as African continent and play the role that we can put them in the global market and be able to exchange trades and project and product all over Africa, and then we look beyond Africa. And one thing I will also suggest is in Ghana, we have something we call the Africa Free Trade Zone. Sometimes the politicians can raise the standard, but we as a organization, I feel like it's time for us going through all the system to see what is there for us as a benefit as African people. So if we can take advantage of some of their structures and ship and send product, that will be cheaper, because now if you want to deal with the posting system, it's very expensive. The shipping system in the world now is very expensive. So compare how much you have to pay to put some things on board. I think expensive. So going forward, we need to think about how we can collaborate with future organizations like government, the municipal assembly, district assembly, and various uh, combination structures as Pan-African people, so that we can have a well global standard of food from the ITA certification and everything. We can have a complete document to share as a template. That's the little I can contribute. Give thanks. Yeah, through the chair, that's the little I can contribute. So
Yeah, we appreciate that. Any more question or comment? One plus, you unmuted your mic. Do you have a question? Yeah, so Bobo Salas, I heard you talk about capacity building, and to a large extent, that's very positive. Heard it over and over, and I'm sure we also have some individuals who have gone through some training. What I see is that we need to organize production to complement or to add to what you are suggesting. I think there's a lot that is going on, but our challenge has been our inability to organize production. Some of these products that have demands on the local market, yes, we outsource from others to supply to these international markets. When Rastafari have the means of producing some of these things, branding some of these products, and all that. So moving forward, I think we should also prioritize organizing production as a group. Yeah, to be able to meet some of the market needs that are existing and to boost the trading amongst Africans at home and abroad. So that's the little I wanted to add. Any question or comment?
Yeah, my lord. What I want to add is the way I'm emphasizing on capacity building is when you go into that, you see what the near and the far or the distance between what you want to do and what you can accomplish. Like when it comes to the ITA certification, when you want to deal with Food and Drugs Authority, any country, what laws and what related to shipment, what a type of product and all that. When we train our people in that, you see that we have the things in Africa, but sometimes maybe the measurement, the kind of communication language that is needed in the structure to communicate globally, maybe some of this, the thing you have to source them in this Olonka and go and try to get your own kilo and scale to be able to understand when somebody is saying about a kilo or something. So all these things are common things that if we don't take care and put them into daily concern, these are the like barriers and chain that is breaking some of our African continent and brothers and sisters for relating internationally. So we have to see into the capacity building and also before it to be easier for us to develop the products because then we know what really are the laws surrounding it and how we can go around it from Ghana to other communities. Well, if not, because I start to share this as kind of experience with Empress them and going to like post office, going to check from various departments, the shipment and all that, you will not even understand how much it costs or what are the various choices of how to ship all these things out. And it's needed all over the world, but how to get it there in the cheapest means is most important. So I think going forward, we as an organization can stand in a point of proposing some of the benefits. With organization, it's easy to decide, but with individual, we realize that it will not. So currently, what we are outsourcing as we are seeing is from organizations or companies that have already been through testification and value addition standard like FDA approval and all that. So if we also position ourselves, we will be able to go through the same systems. So let's
Yes, give thanks. Please, the floor is still open for questions, comments, and contribution.
Yes,
Through the chair.
Greetings.
Chair, Ross Zola said he's having difficulty getting back onto the Zoom, so I'm going to resend him the link. But I just wanted you to be aware.
I got you,
Okay.
my sister. Sorry about that. Because I'm using a hotspot because I'm out of the city. If I'm drop off, I'm definitely going to link forward. Thank you so much, my sister. Bless.
Through the chair.
Yes, King.
I just want to do some few corrections. Ras Zola in his name in my language, which is Ewe, is Hola, which means savior. So I'll be calling him Ras Hola. And the place Kasi is called Liati Wote. Liati Wote. Those are the two corrections I want to put forward.
Give thanks, my brother. Very important. for us in the West to get the right pronunciations because your name is so important and names are important. I give thanks. And I would just like to block a song that the collective unity, when we talk about global Black food sovereignty, it's very important that we start organizing in relation to our gathering in 2026 in Liat Wote in the Volta region. Hopefully, the Rastafari Council, Ghana Rastafari Council, would be able to participate this year as we organize this second annual Global Black Food Sovereignty Gathering. And the conversation I've been hearing is a lot about trade and how we work together. And I see these gatherings as places that we could stay and discuss and consolidate gatherings and trade, whether it be in the North America, Central America, South America, or Europe with the motherland. We were able to really establish these links. Even the agricultural conversations. Now, for my work with the Black Food Sovereignty Alliance, is basically to bring ones together. It's very important for us to make sure that we just don't talk about the trade, but talk about how we could work together. Because for colonization has really separated us. So it's an important work for how we gather. So as a co-chair of the Global Black Food Sovereignty Collective, I'm sending invitation to everyone on this call that in October, we are in Ghana and we continue to organize globally. Now, any questions? As I said, myself and Scheril, and I see my beloved brother, Kwasi Bonso, much respect to Lion Voice, ready to answer questions. Because this is a conversation. I don't like to present, but I like us to have a conversation on how we're developing this global Black Food Sovereignty Collective, how we're working together. We have the opportunities. We didn't have this before. Food sovereignty give us this opportunity now to be more closer. So let's keep this reasoning flowing, Rastafari.
Gracias.
Rastafari. Yeah, so from the submissions, highlighting the differences between food security and food sovereignty. Food security, I know, is about food access, affordability, and availability. Here in food sovereignty goes ahead to talk about people's rights, like social justice. And one of the things we notice in this challenge is seeds. For instance, one of the things that these multinationals use to take farmers' sovereignty is their seeds by introducing seeds to farmers that will require farmers to have a dependence on them, because these seeds are not like something you can regenerate after seasons. So this makes food sovereignty seed banking a priority. So my question is, does the global food sovereignty, Black food sovereignty, have a program that would, let's say, have centers where seeds are being preserved through production, continuous production, and other means of seed preservation? Give thanks.
Well, for my knowledge, at the last gathering, in October 2025, we did discuss seed sovereignty as an important aspect because where I is concerned, the seeds on the continent of Africa are the most important seeds. Seeds all around the world is important, but for seeds of people of African descent, I know my brethren, the president reasoned about something to do with genes and seeds, very important, because even today, I was reasoning on the Bingy grounds with an angel and we was talking about seeds coming to Guyana directly from Ghana and from the West Africa. Seeds that are here in Ghana that were brought by our ancestors who were enslaved. And the importance of these seeds reaching these areas. And there's seeds in Guyana that is only part of the world outside of Africa you have these seeds. So the idea of seed sovereignty, especially African seed sovereignty, is very important. So we had the conversation. We haven't established any real link, but I know there's sisters from Canada, two sisters specifically from Ghana who grew up as children in Ghana, who are one is in Ghana now, and one is in Toronto, and they're big on working in rural areas of Ghana, saving seeds, saving the traditional seeds, and making sure that the communities have these seeds. Because seeds is just like life. Seeds is life, our life as people of African descent. So what has been going on with these multinational corporations? We have to make sure we keep organizing around seed sovereignty within the whole idea of the global Black food sovereignty. So answering the questions, we're now getting there, but there are ones on the ground who are already doing this. Hopefully at the next gathering, we could get these ones to come and present on the works that they're doing in Ghana on seed sovereignty. But I don't know if you're familiar with the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, very strong institution. It is a broad alliance of different civil society actors that are part of the struggle for food sovereignty and agroecology in Africa. And these include African farmer organizations, African NGO network, specialist African NGOs, consumer movements in Africa, and international organizations which support the stance of the AFACE and its individual. It's a member represents members represent smallholder farmers, pastoralists, fishers, hunters, gatherers, indigenous people, faith-based institutions, and environmentalists from across Africa. It is a network currently comprising 48 member networks working in 50 African countries. So they have a real interesting seed saving program that we should look into and support because they're already working on it. And the AFSA vision is Africa developing just and equitable ways of life for people in harmony with nature, continually harnessing the traditional knowledge systems. Now, very important, I hear my brother talk about Dr. Sebi, and Dr. Sebi works are very important. But for me, even more important than Dr. Sebi work is the history of food in Africa, what we traditionally eat, and how it affects us. Very important to look at the past African civilizations. So that means we're looking into history of how we survive food sovereign, because before colonizations, we were always food sovereign. Because if we weren't food sovereign, there would have been no one living in Africa. We'd have been starving. So we always feed hundreds of millions of people throughout the ages. So we can't forget to look at the traditional roots of how we live pre-colonization. So the idea of education, as Majesty said, education is the key. So we have to keep learning about trade, learning about the ganja, but we also have to keep learning about the history of our foods, our yam festivals, the way our food ways in Africa, the way we cook the food. Because the thing about food sovereignty is not just about agriculture, it's about everything to do with food. It's about the cultural culinary traditions of Africa, the cultural culinary traditions of Black people in the diaspora. So cutting the question short, seeds is very important. So thank you for that question, my brethren.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I would like to recommend some of the foods Dr. Sebi recommend for us, but everybody can check Dr. Sebi's nutritional guide, and the foods we should be eating are there, like quinoa, fonio, teff, the spelt instead of wheat, and then wild rice, and then if everybody goes to the nutritional guide, you see the type of and fruits we should eat. So I just want to emphasize on those nutritional guides, and according to see how different our lives will be. Because all inventions in America were done by Black people because they were not introduced to cassava. When they took them away to America, especially USA, they were not eating cassava. So their brains were not polluted or contaminated. So we should all try and endeavor to eat the foods that are starch-free, like green banana, the short green banana with the blue type. Calalo is one of them. Pineapple is out. Pineapple is completely not our food because it's pine and apple. And before it could be combined, the starch, which have to be put in it. I mean, to bind them together. So I would still emphasize, as food sovereignty, we should try and study Dr. Sebi's teachings, because that is why they killed him. He was planning to get every African American to contribute $2 each, and then they will buy land in some islands in the Caribbean and grow the foods, and then ship it with the alkaline water to America. And that same money they were going to be using to buy ship the food, so that every Black man or every African American will be eating the food without buying it. And that is what Babylon couldn't like. Those are some of the reasons why they kill him. So it's very important we stick to this is a nutritional guide and stay out of sickness. Thank you very much.
Give thanks. Please, Dr. Sadia.
Yes, brethren. Greetings to one and all, to the Rastafari Council of Ghana and to the presenters of this evening's educational program. I was informed about the shea nuts from the northern region that produce shea butter. I was told that the Europeans or white people have been buying the shea trees. They come over there and then they mark some areas and then they buy the trees from the indigenous people. So now after they have bought the trees, they will ban them from the territory. So now it's like we own these trees and those trees will manufacture for them. So they are now taking their resources from the indigenous people. And I'm sure why they will sell it. I'm not saying all of them, but why some of them are selling the trees to them is, the same poverty thing. So they come and they give them a little substantial money. They don't see the value. They'll just let it go. So they are buying the trees and then the shea nuts in bulk. And now they are taking it over there and manufacturing it themselves. So see, this is why they come into our countries and they learn the technology of how we do things. Then they will steal it from us and then they will take it away. I'm just I don't know how true I'll do more research and see how true it is. And some of them are also telling me that the trees don't belong to anybody. The trees traditionally belong to the community. So this needs to be researched into, and I want to bring this to the awareness of the food sovereignty, maybe local and international committee to also look into, and this is something that we can fight against to preserve our own national treasures. So that's my comment. And another comment is I am selling natural Ghanaian produced oils, all the oils that we've been told we shouldn't consume, the palm oils, palm kernel, shea butter, groundnut oil, all of those, etc., etc. So if you're looking for oils, you can contact me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Empress. Jason, you have a comment.
Yes, greetings, family. Okay, so I would like to add up to what Razola said about the seed banking. It's like we discussed a lot at Kasi, and I remember we talked about seeds, our indigenous seeds. So I think it's bent on us. We here as the Rastafari Council, I think we being indigenous people, we should put it upon ourselves to indulge into the seed banking more. We can start from there, I think, and going forward, we can also look into the value chain of the food system, the black food system, so we know where exactly we can stand in this supply chain. So we can also, give out a bit of the development towards the intertrade, and I think, and our food sovereignty system. So yeah, I think it's bent on us as the council here, being the indigenous people, to look more into the value chain system. Yeah, and also start up with something with the seed banking. We can be saving our indigenous seeds, and I know we will need an office to do that. So yeah, we can start from somewhere. And I think that's a bit of contribution I wanted to add to what Ranzola said, to answer Rascal for your question too. Thank you.
Give thanks, Jason. Give thanks.
Yes, I give thanks as well.
Yeah, so we have done 2 hours of reasoning. Want to ask if there is any final. We'll take 2 more questions and then we'll go to the presenter to give us his closing remarks. So any 2 more questions or contributions?
Give thanks. Can I ask a quick question?
Yes,
or
please.
contribution? Rastafari. So
Yes.
I also want to ask about if we have, as a community, made any plans for seed banks. I do apologize. I missed part of the reasoning, so that may have been discussed. I just want an information if we are considering seed banks. And let me clarify that: secret seed banks. Why am I saying secret seed banks? Because we all know there's a grand agenda to use food as a weapon against Black people, against Africans, against INI. Now, if we have a seed bank which is known to everybody, that's already a target. That's already something that everybody has access to. But if we have certain plans to institute seed banks across the continent, across the world, in fact, where it's not a very open operation, but we are consistently and consciously saving seeds for a rainy day. If any updates are in that area, I would like to know. Give thanks.
Yes, Ras, Zola, Hola. Please, would you like to take that? Or Ras, Kwesi Bonsu.
I must apologize. I was a little bit speaking with someone here, and if you could rephrase the gist of the question, I appreciate it.
Raskofi,
Yes, so he was asking if there are plans to establish seed banks.
I think Jason spoke to it. I spoke to it briefly. Is that we started the conversation at the Global Black Family Collective, but as I said before, I know some sisters from Toronto who grew up in Toronto but now live in Ghana, and they are serious about seed sovereignty and seed collecting, especially with women in the rural areas of Ghana. So foundations have already been established in Ghana, and instead of reinventing the wheel, I know we as Rastafari should establish food banks to seed banks, seed libraries. So it's looking at whatever way is possible for established seed saving opportunities. So there's lots of ones on this call, you know what I mean? It's a calling within the whole vision of Black food sovereignty that we should establish seed banks, seed saving libraries, establish seed saving institutions, because very important is that we preserve the traditional seeds in Ghana. I went to a few stores in Ghana and I was amazed the amount of chemical kinds of foods and sweets, and there's so much wealth of ITEL food in Ghana, of good food, and you don't see it in the stores, you don't see it in the shops. So as Rastafari, we have to lead the way and making sure we save the seeds, but we also produce from these seeds so people could see the value, because people have the mouth sweet for the Western chemical foods. We have to step up with the ITEL food stores, so that the people looking for leadership from I and I as Rastafari. So we have to establish seed saving food banks.
Give thanks, Ras. We'll take a comment from the president of RCG, Daddy Bosco.
Greetings. I'd like to give thanks for this insightful reasoning. And I look forward to the outcome of these conversations.
We're not hearing Daddy Bosco. We're
Oh,
not hearing
sorry.
you.
All right, Xola, greetings. Good to hear you again on
Yes.
this network. Yeah, man. I'm saying that this conversation has been insightful, and I'm looking forward to the outcome. As you indicated, in October, Liati Water, you're planning, you're following up to last year's engagement. So, as you indicated, the RCG will duly participate, and this conversation is also timely because next month we're having the 11th International Rastafari Conference, and the theme is on agriculture,
You're
sustainable
speaking, Daddy Bosco,
agriculture.
but we're not hearing.
Yeah.
I know I'm not hearing.
Are you hearing now? Are you Lift up hearing your me? voice a little bit, up sound.
Yeah, so are you hearing me now?
Yes, this is good.
Okay, give thanks. So, like I'm saying, this reasoning is timely because next month is the 11th National Rastafari Conference, and the theme is on agriculture. We will have the director for the presidential initiative on agriculture and agribusiness reasoning with us. So it would be good to, if there are any ideas that could possibly be tabled, it would be good to get these ideas forward. I believe the administrator, Kofi Asante, would follow up with the item so that whatever ideas we could put together in our engagement with him, we would have them. So give thanks and we look forward to more positive work. Bless you all.
Rastafari. Jasan, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I wanted to add up to this one too. I think we all suggested that since CASI, I hope you know about CASI, Taekwondo Institute of Sustainable, Taekwondo
Yeah.
and Sustainable Institute. Yeah. So we all suggested that we're going to start the seed banking in CASI. That is for the Ghana section. We're going to start with CASI since they are already into the organic farming and organic seed. They have a little seed bank which is not to the standards, but the same on it. So I think we can collaborate with CASI and as Rastafari Council, so we can get involved in and all when I think the time comes when we will need seeds. So in a way, I'm proposing that we can, in going forward, we can collaborate with CASI when it comes to the seed banking. So I hope I answered your beloved's question. And Bobo Selassie also wants to add something.
I think in permaculture side, we have a community seed banking, a seed saving ideas for farmers. We have seed exchange program. So sometimes when you come to a place, you can find seeds that are not normally exposed to other communities, but they are local seeds. So we want to promote that in various communities, that everywhere you are, that you can find a seed. We try to at least keep the indigenous seeds so that individually and community wise we can be having seeds. And when it comes to like programs, we can even bring seed for exchange, and various communities can have various type of seed. We not only the seed exchange, but crossbreed of seeds, like local seeds. Some can survive in a community, some cannot survive in a community. So anytime we meet, we do exchange seed. So if we can adopt that as a farmer organization where we can encourage farmers to keep indigenous, because the agri sector with the government is bringing what they call not GMO alone, but they call something hybrid seeds. When you get a hybrid seed, you plant 1 acre, next year you still have to go and buy from the same seed producers. So if we are not protecting or preserving our local seeds, we realize that we will have seeds, but we cannot have indigenous. So we are encouraging our farmers to do seed exchange, indigenous seed. If it's coconut, they are now producing and promoting what they call dwarf coconut, short breed and short years and all that. So we encourage farmers mostly to preserve their own seeds. And some of the breed of the plants are getting lost. Like we have some watayam, which was very like colorful those days. Most of the things, some of the species are going away from the system locally. So we are proposing that, because you went talk about a loss of species of plants, especially African indigenous, that will be lost if we continue to follow like the plant breeds, like breeding of seeds, and forgetting the local one. So I will encourage every member here to, any farmer you are around, encourage them to keep protecting and preserving their local seeds, so that even now they are dealing with a lot of foreign seed, and they call it upgrading seeds, which you cannot plant and have food out of them. So in future, everything will be seeds if we continue to follow this trend of seeds. So it's important to remind every farmer that we are closer to have access to the indigenous seed and preserve it and keep it as we are doing, so that we can implement that globally as African people. Give thanks.
Yes, sir. I give thanks. So I don't see any more hands up. And I want to assume we are all satisfied with it. Rajula, do you still have anything to say? You did put your hands up earlier. If not, I'm assuming we are all satisfied with the conversation. So I'll hereby invite Xola to give us his closing remarks.
Well, make sure I like to give thanks to the Rastafari Council of Ghana Education Committee. It's an honor to present here on this Rastafari reasoning. I got to take note that it's a bi-weekly lecture series. I would like to make sure that, put me in the link, make sure that if it's possible, as an honorary Ghanaian, I could be invited just to sit on these reasoning and learn, because education is important. As the flyer say, iron sharp iron, and education is a means of sharpening the mind, both spiritually and intellectually, highly Selassie. And as Marcy also said, education is the key. So for education, the practical is important, but the education is also important. As I said, we have to look back at the traditions of the civilizations in Ghana, see the way we eat, especially through the lens of the Ital Liberty. And I like to seal up by speaking briefly about Rastafari food sovereignty, the Ital Liberty, I self-determination and reclamation of I life and land and our cultural foodways, wherever I trod as Rastafari. Because food sovereignty was articulated by the global movement La Via Campesina. As I said, it's nothing new for us as people of African descent, food sovereignty. And it's the right of people to define and control our own sustainable food system. Very important, emphasizing local economies, equitable access, and ecological sustainability. From Rastafari perspective, however, this concept extends beyond political or economic dimensions. It's intertwined with our heretical practice, our cultural identity, and deep reverence for the earth. For Rastafari, food sovereignty is not simply the right to grow food. It is a living principle, inseparable from the philosophy of Ital Liberty. And ethos that in life that guides I and I every aspect of being. When we talk about the Ital Liberty, we ain't just talking about the Ital, we talking about the heretical Irish. At the core of Rastafari food sovereignty lies the Ital Liberty. And the item know the Ital come from the word vital. It's vital, it's important. And the Ital is a holistic approach to living in alignment with the natural world, rooted in spiritual and physical quest for irity. Rastafari dietary practice emphasizes unprocessed, organic, plant-based food, often cultivated without artificial inputs. The act of eating Ital is not merely about health, but our communion with the earth and the divine majesty, highly Selassie and nature, and our ancestral roots in Africa. As I said before, the foundation of African food sovereignty is the first African woman feeding the first child. Because that woman had to take that child, put it to her breast, and feed that child. That is defining the food system. That's the shortest food system from the child to the mother breast being fed. So it's very important that we look at as Rastafari in a world shaped by colonial legacies, corporate agribusiness, and the rapid depletion of local food cultures. That's why I say we have to look forward how ancestors grew food, cook food, preserve food, everything to do with food in Ghana. As I said to my brother, I ain't dissing Dr. Sebi, But I live for thousands of years. I genes is filled with the food from Africa. I can know how to separate the blood from the plant base. And I looking to take the plant base out of Africa and trade with it as the ital liberty and honor the life, the land, and the irids of our ancestors. Consuming food that are free from chemical preservatives and additives. Connecting to the land. Now, some of us have lots of land. As my brethren said with Dr. Sebi, of acquiring land. We have plenty land in Africa. I could tell you them, I just come from a reasoning on the Nyabingi of Guyana Tabernacle. We have 400 acres of land now. We had 800. We had to negotiate with the government about 400 to build a housing scheme, but we still have another 400, 800 acres of land. And we're looking at how to steward and manage this land. So very much important as seed saving is access to land and how we manage land, how we live as a community, collective practice. ITAL is not just individual, it's a communal sharing food, seeds, and knowledge to sustain our community resilience and intergenerational wisdom. We're looking at the historical roots of Rastafari food sovereignty from the movement it emerged in the 1930s in Jamaica, the Ital Liberty. I know my brethren, Kwasi Bonsu here, once saying that the Ital Liberty started around Leonard Howell in his reasoning with the Indian people from India. And then there's another reasoning about a Rastafari who was fisherman running from the Babylon in the times of oppression from the Babylon system in Jamaica. And they run up into the hills in Jamaica and they were hiding and they start eating ital. And when they come down from the hills, they say, you know what? That is the liberty, the ital natural liberty. So we're looking at the fullness of I liberty as Rastafari with the iritical sovereignty at a spiritual, you know. So we want to make sure we cultivate the collective development and the ecological consciousness of I move forward as Rastafari. Because I showing leadership to all people of African descent, that I liberty come from the earth. It is plant-based. It is not blood, and it's not the swimmers from the ocean. It's coming from the plant and the earth. So I global connection of Rastafari, very important. So we develop this closeness and looked at the challenges and the path forward of how we can move forward. So for Rastafari, food sovereignty is a sacred trust, a duty to the Almighty and to our ancestors and descendants and the earth itself and our youths and children of the future. It's an act of remembrance, resistance, and renewal. As Manzi said, we can become a new race and a new set of people. Rastafari. I give thanks. The IDM invite me to this gathering to speak on the topic of the global Black food sovereignty, Rastafari food sovereignty. Haile Selassie I, mighty I, one perfect love.
Rastafari. Before you leave, Zola, you've been requested to type in your number so that we can reach you for continuous engagement. We appreciate. Yes, my lords and empresses, we appreciate you joining us for tonight's reasoning by the Rastafari Education Commission. Next 2 weeks, we'll reconvene for another reasoning on the topic. We'll convene on the topic Building Zion on Earth, the Kwekuando Sustainability Institute as a model for Rastafari global development. And that conversation will be led by Kashan Myers, otherwise we call him Bingi Sean, leader of the Habisha, Helping Africa by establishing schools at home and abroad. And he's also the founder for the Kweku Ando Sustainable Institute. So we'll reconvene again next week. And we appreciate you all. Rastafari.
Hallelujah.
Last year.
And last year, King Rastafari.
Give thanks.
Yes, Kofi, I put the links. One is from Canada and the other one is from Guyana. Presently now, I'm in Guyana. So that's the more appropriate one as of now. Rastafari. Give thanks. One perfect love.
Rastafari. Give thanks for the link, Majesty.
Yes, I give thanks and I encourage once and once so we keep up with these vibes, you know, more often and yeah, respect for that.
Yes, sir, love. So until such time where we meet again.
Yeah, and we'll go share the Lion Voice network too, so people can reach into.
Yes. So the
We
Empress
will do the link.
requested that.
So we
Right.
should share it on the executive for general platform Rastafari Council.
Yeah, so both will do as good.
All right, okay.
Okay.
And any links that you'll be getting subsequently from the Lion Voice, you should push it up. I'm sure in the
I've been pushing them
quarter.
on our platforms.
Come again.
I've been pushing some of them on our platform, so
Positive.
I think
I'm
we'll
sure
put them on
we
the executive
see
as well.
Bonsu himself will be here when time is due to lead us on another conversation. So we appreciate your presence. We'll call it a night. Rastafari.
Yeah, I have to get some big speed now.
Xola looks very much like Daddy Bosco.
The same people.